Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. And I read where you called me patient warrior, and I proudly wear that badge. I am a patient warrior, not on my own, and not just because today I'm pain-free, but because I'm just part of the warrior community. We're fighters. We have to fight. We have no alternative. Again, my name is Jolie. I am mother of two. I have two adult children, 23-year-old and 22-year-old, that have been, part of this with me. Watching myself through their eyes, it's almost shocking, because you're living in so much pain and you're living in this kind of parallel universe, but yet you're seeing the faces around you. You're seeing, how many others it's actually affecting while you're going through this. And, my journey, it really started long after my first pain. My first pain was around 12 years old. I was, misdiagnosed. They called it chronic sinusitis, which I don't even think is a thing anymore. I don't even know if that's actually a real thing. But so it left me, taking over-the-counter medications, dealing with lots of rebound side effects from that, but that's what it was. And I call my personal journey, I call it chasing rainbows. I had heard it once in a doctor's office, and that's what it was for me. It was chasing rainbows. Don't eat chocolate. Limit your caffeine intake. Up your caffeine intake. Get a lot of rest. Relax. I mean, it was so, the advice, which is all well-intended and useful, without a proper diagnosis, it left me really in no man's land. Very broken. And I think my biggest regret is that I accepted this mediocre diagnosis. I look back, like I said, I'm 51 years old. I look back, I accepted that mediocre diagnosis. My mother didn't know what to do for me. She accepted that mediocre diagnosis. My husband, my life was, it was built around something that wasn't even accurate. And I accepted it as truth. It's very frustrating to look back at that, but when you know better, you do better. And this is the point of all of this, right? To talk, to communicate about it. And so I'm happy to be here today to share a couple of things that happened to me. And the first thing that happened was 18 years ago. 18 years ago, my husband was sitting in our general physician's office, and he was waiting for a flu shot. And while he was sitting there, he looked down, and there was the cover of New York Magazine. And on the cover, it said, top 100 doctors in Manhattan. So he picked it up and he flipped through, and there was a guy on one page that was the headache doctor. And after reading the miracles that were happening for this doctor's patients, my husband made an appointment for me to go. Now, he told me this amazing news. He told me of this fantastic man. And I said, I'm not going. I'm done. I'm broken. I don't care. I do not trust the medical community to fix me. I'm done. Absolutely hard no. Well, he kept the appointment anyway. And of course, I mean, I didn't get better. I didn't feel better. Nothing I did was working. And when it came time to go, I went. I don't know. I just went. I didn't skip into the office. I wasn't like open, but I went. And his name was Dr. Newman. And he sat me down and I told him my life story in a few parts. I told him about my medication journey. I told him about my headache journey. I told him about my frustration. I told him how many doctors I went to see. I told him about the kind of doctors I went to see. And after about 20 minutes, he said to me, okay, Jolie, tell me, of all the things you've tried, of all the things you've done, what is the one thing that gives you the best results? So I'm like irritated. I said, 4 Advil, a can of Coke, and a handful of M&Ms. Thinking now I really stumped him. And he looked at me and he went, And now sitting next to him is a medical student, because he happened to be head of the Headache Institute in a teaching hospital. And so he looked at the doctor and he looked at him and he went, And this guy sitting next to him looked at him and he went, And now I'm getting irritated because, like, you're kidding me. 4 Advil, a can of Coke, and a handful of M&Ms, and you know what's wrong with me? And this guy knows what's wrong with me? Well, it turns out he did. So he said, this is what I think. I have good news and bad news. He said, what do you want first? I said, I'll take the bad news. He said, okay, I think you have something called Hemicrania Continua. That is a one-sided continuous headache. So I looked at him and I said, I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I just told you I had. So he said, yeah, and not only do I think you have it, I think you're textbook. So now I'm textbook. 20 years, I have zero information. 20 minutes later, not only do I have a diagnosis or a possible diagnosis, but I'm textbook. He said, I want you to go home and look it up. This is like 2002. So he says, I want you to go home and look it up. There's about 7 things that we use to decide whether it's Hemicrania Continua. And you have all of them. And not only do you have all of them, I want you to know there are only about 100 known cases of this in the world right now. So there's 100 people out there with this in all of history, and I'm one of them, and he knew in 20 minutes. I mean, I didn't even want to go to this appointment. So, I'm definitely in disbelief. I looked at him like he's crazy. I looked at him like, yeah, right. And he said, so here's the good news. You didn't even ask me. So you're going to go home. You're going to take a pill. It's called indomethacin. This is the best part of it. It's preventable. The pain is preventable. It will always be there. It does not go away, and it is not a cure. But if you take this anti-steroidal, this non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, it's going to control your pain. And if you have Hemicrania Continua, it is 100% responsive to this particular medication. So, you know, I thanked him for his time. I definitely was in disbelief. I left there with zero hope, but we drove home from the city. It took about an hour. 8 o'clock that night, I took my medication. 8:20 that night, I was feeling better. Days before, I was in my closet with an ice bag on my head and the door closed and crying myself to sleep and praying to pass out from the pain, And now 20 minutes later, he knew what was wrong. And 20 minutes after I take my medication, I'm feeling better. So, I mean, okay. There it was, a proper diagnosis. I don't know how to explain what happened for me going from saying okay, taking samples out of a doctor's office time and time again, making an appointment for 6 weeks later, follow-up to see if any of that worked, to this. Not only this, before I left, he said, here's my email. Email me in the morning. Tell me how you're feeling. Oh, okay. I'll email you in the morning. And I emailed him in the morning. My head doesn't hurt. I mean, I was like walking around like, I mean, does it hurt? It doesn't hurt, but does it hurt? It didn't hurt. And like, it was gone. It was gone. I call it when my pain disappears, I call it, it lifts. So, I take my medicine in the morning and I take it at night. It was bye-bye pain. I experienced great success from that day forward. I felt great. I lived well. I took care of my health. I was thriving in business, with my family, socially. I was thriving. I did not have any voice in my head saying, be careful, don't do this. You don't know what's going to happen. Make sure everybody knows that you have this disorder because you may have to call out. You may have, it was gone. It was, that all disappeared. 20 years, it was gone. And, you know, I kind of looked like a fraud. So I did this segment on CBS Evening News. Pretty cool. So they come to the house, they film you, they set it up, they give you a magazine, you sit there reading it, and then they ask you some questions to share your story. So they said, Jolie, can you describe your pain for us? So I said, yes. Well, the pain enters my eye. Like, I looked like a bad actress because I clearly wasn't in any pain. I clearly didn't look like that girl who was really deteriorating. I looked like a fraud, but I was happy to share my story. Anybody that would listen, I would tell my story. But it was so far away from what I lived with. It was gone. And, you know, I just lived that way for the next 17 years. I wore it like a loose garment. I just wore it like I knew it was there. It was like a ghost feeling because the trigeminal nerve is completely engaged in Hemicrania Continua. So you could feel the path of it. It never changed. It didn't move. It was always in the left side, and you could actually trace the pain. Stayed the same all the time. So I can feel, like I can pull it up and feel it at any given moment, just without the pain. It's always there, it's always with me, but I am preventing it from becoming, with the use of these anti-inflammatories, intense pain. So that's what I did. I was thriving, I was in control, and I had a great quality of life. I really did. And then 4 years ago, I started to get what we would call, or what my doctor would call, breakthrough headaches. Now, forgive me for using the word headache, but my disorder it's a headache disorder. So it is very similar to migraine in many, many ways, but it is still considered a headache disorder. In public, I do not use the term headache. I have changed my vocabulary to migraine disease or neurological disorder. But in private, in the community, and with my doctor, it is still considered a headache disorder. So I just want to be clear on that in case I'm offending anybody, or I'll just wanted to be clear about that. That's my diagnosis. But I started to experience frequent pain. I would have occasional breakthrough headaches that would last like 3-4 days. It was exactly the same as what I had experienced prior. They didn't go away now. The indomethacin was completely not responsive. I was getting no relief. We upped the dose, we down the dose, because remember, I have his email, so I have his phone number, and I would email him and call him, and I would go into the office, and nothing was working. And over the next few months, it deteriorated to the point where now it was once again constant, and he didn't know why. So I can't explain what that feels like when you know you're in the best hands, when you know you're being cared for, you know you're being responded to, listened to, and nothing was working. So I worked closely with my team during that time, my pharmacist, my general physician, with Dr. Newman, my neurologist, and with my family. And after a full year, there was no answers. I was chronic again. It was unbearable. I couldn't pass a psych test in my general physician's office. I was that dark. I couldn't look at them and say, I said, I have dark thoughts. I was dark, just like that. I was dark. It was bad. Nothing was more important than getting out of this pain. I was in shock. And she knew I needed to go on antidepressants. She said, all right, listen, this is temporary. Your depression is situational. We're going to get you out of this depression, and we're going to find out what's wrong with you. You have to stay in contact with your neurologist, but in the meantime, I'm going to put you on antidepressants. And they worked. And I didn't want to. I mean, what I needed antidepressants for? But I needed them, and they worked. They took me out of that dark place, and they helped with that hopelessness. But the pain was every day, almost every day. I found myself chasing rainbows again. I thought I had an ear infection. I thought I had a tumor on my thyroid. I thought I had, I thought it was time for another MRI. I thought I had a back problem, my neck, all of the places that are engaged with the trigeminal nerve. I thought there was something wrong there, where I'm back to that chasing rainbows situation. But, right then and there, someone stepped up for me. So when I say keeping close with your team, someone from my family team stepped up for me, and she made an appointment with another doctor. She's not in the migraine community, but she asked her doctor, if you had a family member that was suffering, where would you go? So she said, oh, I would go see Dr. Young. So she made an appointment with Dr. Young, and I was like, I'm not going. Here I am again. I'm not going. I have the best doctor. I'm not going. And she said, I want you to go. So I said, okay. I called Dr. Newman, who's now the head of neurology at NYU. And I had to call him and tell him I'm going to see another doctor. And I said, I'm going to go see Dr. Young. And I was like this. And he said, that is a great idea. He is so smart. I think he might even be smarter than me. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to call me the second you finish with him. I mean, he's not as funny as me, but I want you to call him the second you finish with him. And by the way, do you want me to just call him for you first? I'll call him right now. I'll call the head of the department over there. I said, no, thank you. And I hung up the phone with him, and this is what happened. And this is what I want you to hear today, because I think I'm about to go over, but this is what I want you to hear most important today. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for communication within the medical community. You're looking for encouragement. You're looking for zero ego. They in that moment, why did I have trepidation calling a doctor to say I'm going to another doctor? Why? When I was so encouraged to do so. Tremendous. So those are the goals right there when you're building your team, in my opinion. So I went to see Dr. Young. I told him who I was. I told him who my doctor was. He said, okay, we got some big shoes to fill. And he proceeded to try everything once again. So for the next 9 months, he managed my pain, which was fantastic. And it never got to that intense level. He introduced me to gabapentin, which helped with my nerve pain. Gabapentin and me are kind of weird because I get very dizzy. I lose cognitive skills. I have to lay down, not druggy dizzy, but just actually physically dizzy. But it does take it from, it doesn't let the pain get above like a 5 for me. And those numbers, 5 is like sometimes like, oh, I could do anything on a 5, So that's what it did for me, but he still didn't give up. Dr. Newman didn't give up. I saw them both. I said, can I see you both? They said, sure. Okay. So now I'm seeing 2 of the top neurologists, and they're like happy about it. Well, what did he say when you told him? And what does he think about this? And just tremendous, right? So, now I need a new diagnosis though, because my Indocin is not working. The headache is exactly the same, but it's not working. So the diagnosis became that I was suffering a secondary, this time being called a migraine disorder, that was mimicking the original disorder and following the same neuropath. Because it's like, oh, you're in stress, you're in trouble, we know where to go. We know where to go. So it was following the same neuropath, but not responsive to Indocin. So at a visit, just a regular visit with Dr. Young, he said, so there's this medication that's relatively new. It's called Jolie, and I want you to try it. We have absolutely no reason to believe that it will work because there's no tests for Hemicrania Continua, but we have no reason to believe that it won't work. Do you want to try it? And I was like, hell yeah, I want to try it. So I started a Jolie, and within a month, my headaches were down to about half a month. And by month 3, I was down to about 10 pain days a month. So I'm already a believer. And after, it took about a year to get full result, and now I'm pain-free again. Just like that. No known explanation, why, what, how, you know, it's mysterious. Like they say, it's invisible. I mean, it's not invisible because you see it in the mirror, you see it in your medication cabinet, you see it in your friends and family's faces. But just like that, it was actually invisible again because the pain was gone. And that's, for me, the only time it's invisible is when the pain is gone. So that's it. You know, it worked. I've been in management. I have a lot of gratitude. I came off the antidepressants. I dealt with a lot of secondary stuff. I had PTSD. I had a lot of problems coming off the antidepressants. That was very difficult for me. But, you know, I fought through it. Shock, you know, all of that. I keep both doctors. I love both doctors. I don't need them. I don't call them, but I know that they're there. This is what I know now. I know that there are no clear answers. I know my daughter, who's 23 years old, has also been diagnosed with Hemicrania Continua. I know that there are no known cases where it's hereditary, but she has it. She deals with it. She takes Indocin every day. I know that advocacy comes in many forms. I know that to have an advocate in the medical community, an advocate in your family, an advocate in a group like this, you know, everybody's out there, everybody's listening. This is what I encourage. I encourage you to build your team, build that team. I encourage you to fight for a proper diagnosis. It's not easy. You got to fight on your good days. You got to fight on your bad days. I think that one of the biggest things that helped me was to talk about my pain. I talked about it. I screamed. I cried. I raged. You got to talk about it. We have to talk about it. The doctors have to talk about it. And for me, when I felt better the second time, I knew more than anything, I had to talk about it even more. Because I am a warrior. I'm a warrior. And I'm proud of that. And I just hope we can all stay connected. Thank you.